Charlie Gasparino, has new information that he's dug up, I believe, on some tax hikes we might all be facing on the state and local level. Charlie, what are you learning?
Or budget cuts. I think one thing we have to say is everybody's looking at this stimulus plan that's being debated in Washington right now. People are talking about payroll tax cuts, individual checks, battles between Mnuchin and Kudlow over the direction of where the Trump is going to emphasize what it wants out of the budget, out of the stimulus talks. But state and local governments in particular are watching an aspect of it that doesn't get as much attention, but it's pretty big. And it may turn out to be one of the biggest parts of the stimulus plan, and that's aid to state and local governments. As you know, state and local governments across the country have been hammered in their budgets by the pandemic and by the economic collapse that occurred because of the shutdown. So those shutdowns caused the economy to go down, tax receipts to go down, and you have big budget deficits. And there's probably the biggest budget deficit in the world might be in New York State right now, in New York City, which was the epicenter of the pandemic. And I'll get back to that in a second. So what we do know is this, because I've been perusing various state and local governments, asking what they're looking at, and they are eyeing the talks. And they would like most of this, maybe $750 billion of the $1.2 or $5 trillion deal that's likely to be enacted between the Republicans and Democrats in the White House. They would like a big chunk of that, as much as $750–800 billion of it, to go to state and local governments. And the size of what these governments get will determine just what they have to do in terms of budget cuts and tax increases. I will say this: a lot of eyes are on New York State and New York City. Why is that? It was the epicenter of the pandemic for a while. It is also huge state governments, and New York City has one of the biggest state governments in the country. If New York City has one of the biggest municipal governments in the country, it's bigger than most state governments. Okay, you take California out of the mix, and New York City and New York State, and New York City is right behind them in terms of the size of their budget. And New York City is getting hammered right now. If you look at it this way, there's a state agency called the New York State Metropolitan Transportation Authority. It runs the subways. Nobody is on the subways right now. That state agency will probably be the size of government. New York State, on the other hand, what Andrew Cuomo is signaling to people is he knows that there is an exodus of people leaving the state. He knows that he has very little wiggle room in terms of raising taxes, because that will lead to the tax base to pick up and leave even more. So at least for now, what Cuomo is saying, as opposed to de Blasio, and I'm getting this from people close to Cuomo, is that he does not want to raise taxes when all is said and done. But again, and he wants to cut dramatically. Just how much he's going to cut will depend on the size of the stimulus package and what's going to states, and that won't be determined for another couple of weeks. But clearly, state and local governments, Connell, are eyeing this, and they have a lot riding on it. And the New York State and municipalities like that have a real big problem. People have been leaving the state in droves for years. The pandemic and some of the violence that occurred in New York City obviously heightened that. If you raise taxes right now, you have a real problem. So that's why Cuomo is hesitant to raise taxes. De Blasio, on the other hand, it is Comrade Bill de Blasio. He will probably listen to AOC and tax everybody with a heartbeat and a job to plug the budget deficit. But that may have to get through. You have to check New York City tax, how the tax law works. It might have to get through Albany. There are some provisions on New York City that it's hard for them just to simply raise taxes. I think Albany must approve that. So they will have a hard time in Albany, because the legislature, in addition to Governor Cuomo, represents a lot of suburban municipalities that may not go along with those increases. Connell, back to you.
Yeah, and we know Cuomo and de Blasio famously don't get along very well either, even though they're both Democrats. Charlie, good information, gives us a lot to watch.